I stated the directors have 4 meetings a year. The spring one is always the convention where any and all AWSC members are welcome, and we usually have speakers there, like the governor usually shows up and tells us how much he's supporting snowmobiling. I remember one time we had the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court there talking about legislative issues and not legislative liability issues. It just so happens that Wisconsin is one of the unique states, the only state in the union where there's a special regulation on recreational use immunity, where anyone who allows people to use their land for recreational purposes such as hunting, fishing, snowmobiling, cross-country skiing, they're not liable for any damage or any, they can't be sued for any damage that the parties incur. So it's a very unique thing and protects our landowners. The only exceptions are if they intentionally do something to create a hazard, like, put up a rope or cable fence or something, or if they charge over a certain amount, I think it's over $2,000, then they lose that immunity because, then they're either doing something illegal or making money off of it. So, we've had people I remember one time Shirley Abramson, the Chief Justice, was there and told us how unique this was and how thankful we should be for it. So, anyway, there's all kinds of information. There's usually a bunch of safety things there. Hell, that's the shower upstairs. Will that affect you?
Probably not.
Okay, and then
No, it should be all right.
and then in the fall meeting is called the fall workshop, and that again is open to all AWSC members. But then they have various workshops there on how to mark a trail, discussing this liability and insurance that I talked about. There's a class of our club or our county puts on 2 safety courses each year for the newer members and children. And actually, there's a law that if you were born after 1985, you now have to attend a DNR-sponsored safety course to be legally operate a snowmobile. So we put these courses on, and the instructors, such as myself, I've been one for almost 25 years. We have to be recertified every 3 years. So there's workshops there where you can be recertified. There's all kinds of these kind of informational workshops up there. So between those 4 meetings a year, the directors always meet and discuss the problems. Do we have any problems? There's probably 10 or 15 committees within the AWSC, and I won't be able to remember them all, but there's a legislative committee, there's a trails committee, there's a publicity committee, there's an insurance committee, there's an audit committee, there's a multi-use trails committee, there's a vintage sled committee, there's I know I'm missing some. Insurance, I think I mentioned, but all of these, every one of these committees give their reports at every one of the meetings, so that and we can vote upon. They bring up problems, things we need to do. We have to approve if we need to be spending for them, like if we want to issue or award a new contract for the publisher of the Wisconsin Snowmobile magazine. Do we want to keep our insurance with the same provider that we have? Are there any problems with the trail system? Is there any problem with the funding of the trail system? And probably one of the most important one is our legislative committee, which I happen to be a member of. And this is the one that we're responsible for supporting and trying to promote legislation which is favorable to snowmobilers. And right now you've probably heard a ton of stuff about the CAP-STEP program, which stands for Club Assistance Program / Snowmobile Trail Enhancement Program. And I don't know if I mentioned earlier in this interview, but we've always been short of funding because, as I've stated so many times, there's no taxpayer money going into the snowmobile trails. It's all on sled registrations and a minimal amount of gas. So we are dependent upon club members joining so that we can not only use their assistance and person power in marking trails, but their membership dues for the things that we have to buy, like stakes and signs and groomers and all of that kind of thing. And then there's such a thing, you know, the state-funded trails are awarded $250 per mile for the things that I've described out of this fund, which goes through the DNR. But up north, especially where they have to do a lot of grooming, it never covers it. There's just not enough in there to cover it. So there's a supplemental fund in addition to the 250, which still comes out of that same input. But in the past many years, we've only been able to pay back like 60% of the costs that the groomer people up there incur because of the shortage in this supplemental fund. So this, and I'm getting back to what I said, the legislative committee is very important because we do push legislation like this. The current one is to have a two-tier system where non-club members pay, I think, $30 a year. We're introducing a trail pass where you register your sled, but then you have to buy a trail pass. If you're a club member, it only costs you $10 a year. If you're a non-club member, it'll cost you $30 a year. And you know, people say this is unfair. I say it's not unfair. The club member has to pay their club dues. And I also kind of think about it like going to Walmart or to Sam's Club. You don't have to join Sam's Club, but if you do, you get a break in your price. So anyway, the legislative committee, we push these kind of things, and in that same vein, the AWSC, we have a hired lobbyist who lobbies our elected officials for the programs that we deem necessary. You know, for example, one time we had a big problem with it, and we have a current problem with the extended deer hunt up north. They're trying to extend the deer hunt south of Highway 64 from Christmas to New Year's. And a lot of the landowners up north are also hunters. They don't want people out there marking trails, or particularly snowmobiles during deer season, because you know they may have their grandchildren and their brothers and sisters and what have you up there. So it's a real problem that you can't mark the trails until sometimes after New Year's, and by that time you've lost part of the season, plus it's almost impossible to drive stakes in the ground, and sometimes the snow is this deep. So you know, we try to fight things like that or address things like that. So the legislative committee is very important. So you know, we just try to promote legislation and things that are favorable to our support, to our sport, and to assure uniformity throughout the whole trail system in the state. And we also have a legal counsel, I forgot to mention. So between our legislative committee, the legal counsel, and the lobbyist, we try to do the things that are best for snowmobilers and the outstanding trail system that Wisconsin still has.
All right. Is there anything else about the average snowmobile fan or user to know about the Kenosha County Alliance?
Well, I think, you know, I've pretty much covered everything that you said in the remarks that I've given you earlier in this interview. But you know, basically the clubs, through their elected director and representative, bring up their problems, and so that they can get their input into the AWSC. Just as you know, it starts out, you bring up your problems at your club level, and by the way, I forgot to mention, each club then elects 3 representatives to the county alliance, and you know, your representatives take your concerns out to the alliance, and then the state director, which is myself, brings these concerns up to the AWSC at these meetings. And it doesn't have to be only at the meetings. As many of you know, I constantly solicit input from everyone via club meetings, alliance meetings, the emails, and I regularly send out tons of information, which is my job, by the way. So I would just stress that if you have a problem or have a question, come to me first. Don't bother the AWSC office. Not that they can't be bothered, but the system is set up that you contact your director or rep. If I can't get the information, well, then I'll refer you to someplace or look into it further. So that's the role of the clubs. They elect their representatives of the alliance, and then the alliance elects the director to the state AWSC organization.